Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a branded Chimera deck profile. And I'm really excited to do this one for you guys because we finally have Nightmare Apprentice, which increases the consistency of this deck by a lot. I'm super excited to show you guys this list, so without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come for our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like in your name, description, every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting a request deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Nightmare Apprentice. This card is an amazing searcher for the deck with the ability that you can actually special summon this card from your hand by discarding a card. And if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by that battle, just like all of your other illusion monsters. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can add an illusion monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a great ability to either search our copy of Kodal or Mirror Sword Knight directly from our deck to our hand, just giving us more plays for this deck and more consistency. You could probably just play 2 copies of this card if you wanted to, but I really like 3 in the deck for the consistency. We then play 3 copies of Mirror Sword Knight. Mirror Sword Knight is the entire deck. You absolutely have to get to this card as quickly as possible because this card is basically the lone Fire Blossom for the deck. This card has a really cool ability that you can actually tribute this card to be able to special summon a monster from your deck that mentions Chimera Fusion as a quick effect, which is such a cool ability. And when a monster your opponent controls activates its effect while you control a copy of Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or your graveyard to negate the activation, which is such a cool effect. And we have multiple monsters in the extract that actually count as Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast while they're on the field, which is such a cool ability. We then play 3 copies of Cornfield Kodal. Kodal is definitely a 3 of in the build, and this card is a really awesome ability that you can actually discard this card to add a monster that mentions Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, which is usually going to be your copy of Mirror Sword Knight you're searching off this card's effect. This card also has a really cool ability that when your opponent activates a card effect that targets a card that you control, while you control a copy of Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or grave to negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card, which is a really cool ability. You basically have targeting protection and a monster negate in the form of both of these cards. We then play 3 copies of Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws. This card is really good as a 3 of, and what you always want to use for your fusion plays, because this card is a really cool ability. If it's normally special summon, you get to add a level 5 Fiend monster or a Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a material for a fusion summon, you can actually add an illusion monster from your deck to your hand, just giving you more ability to search in this deck for your illusion monsters. We then play just 2 copies of Big Winged Baphomet. Big Winged Baphomet is really good as a 2 of in the build. I don't feel like you need any more than 2 copies of this card because it's a little bit of a brick because it is a level 5 monster, but it's really awesome as a combo piece to be able to summon off your copy of Mirror Sword Knight. This card is, I believe, it's normal or special summon. You get to add a level 4 beast monster and or a copy of Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, meaning you can actually get both at the same time, which means you can get a copy of Gazelle and a copy of Chimera Fusion directly from your deck to your hand when this card is summoned out to your side of the field. This card also has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard as a material for a fusion summon, you can actually target an illusion monster in your graveyard and special summon it to your side of the field. And usually what you want to do is bring back your copy of Mirror Sword Knight back to your side of the field, so you can use it during your opponent's turn to summon out a second copy of this card. We then play a second copy of Master Tao. Master Tao is really good as a 1 of. It's basically Monster Reborn, which is really awesome about this card. I love that about this card. It's just a really good combo piece in the deck, that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target an illusion monster in the graveyard and special summon it in defense position to your side of the field, just giving you additional materials for fusion plays and bringing monsters back to your side of the field like Mirror Sword Knight. We then play a single copy of Dibeals. Dibeals is such a good 1 of in the deck. This card is a really awesome floodgate. This card is kind of sort of like a copy of Anti-Spell on legs. This card has a really cool ability that your opponent must set spells and traps that they control before activating them. And if a spell or trap card becomes set on the field while this card is in the monster zone, except during the damage step, you can actually target a card your opponent controls and a card you control and destroy them. And this card is absolutely crazy, and when I actually replaced for the copy of the Barrier Statue of the Abyss, I now side Barrier Statue and main this because I feel like this hits more matchups than the copy of the barrier statue, because if you go up against the right matchup that needs their spells and traps, you can actually completely win the game by just summoning this card to your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Ejim Chain. Ejim Chain is really good as a 2-of in the deck for the Fright for package, because this card has the ability that if this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add a Fright for card from your deck to your hand, meaning you can search your copy of Patchwork, which then you can activate Patchwork, search another copy of this card, and a Polymerization, which is really, really good. We then play 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz. Fallen of Albaz is basically walking Super Poly, and also has a really cool effect to be able to work with your copy of your Brand of Fusion, so you can step into cards like Mirror Jade and other awesome boss monsters. We then play a single copy of Aluber. Aluber is really good in what we summon off our copy of Branded Opening, because it searches Branded Fusion. I've actually started playing the Branded Opening package in the deck again, and I kind of like it in this deck to be able to help me get to Branded Fusion for more plays, and it's just really good overall in the deck. We then play a single copy of Versago the Destroyer. This is one of my favorite personal techs in the deck to help me go for a bunch of cool fusion plays, because this card is a fiend monster. It's also a fusion substitute monster that can be used as any one material for a fusion summon, which is so cool to be able to use this card to help you step into cards like Dragoon, which is just really, really nice. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just really good as a 3-of in the deck to basically use this card to stop your opponent from touching the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is really good as a 1-of just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you while you're going in for all of your plays. We then play 2 copies of Fright for Patchwork. This card has the ability to let you add a copy of Ejim Chain and a Polymerization from your deck to your hand, and it's searchable off your copy of Ejim Chain, which is such a cool effect. We then play 2 copies of Polymerization. Polymerization is great as a 2-of in the build, just to help us go in for fusion plays and give us extra protection for our copy of Guardian Chimera. We then play 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion is definitely a 3-of in the build, as this card helps us step into so many powerful fusion monsters, making this card a definite 3-of in the build. You want to get to this card so much in this deck that we've actually started playing Branded Opening to summon Aluber, so we can actually search this card directly from our deck to our hand. We then play 3 copies of Chimera Fusion. Chimera Fusion is definitely a 3-of and helps us go in for so many different fusion plays. And has the ability, during the main phase, you can actually fusion summon a fusion monster from your extract using monsters from your hand or field as a material, including a beast or a fiend monster. And also, during your main phase, if this card's in the graveyard and you have a copy of Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast on the field or in the grave, you can add this card back to your hand, which is a really cool effect to instantly get this card back to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Branded Opening. Branded Opening is actually a really cool 3-of in the build to let you discard a card to actually take a Despia monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon in defense position, which you're always going to special summon at your copy of Aluber, so we can search out our copy of Branded Fusion. But this card is actually really cool in the deck now because of its other ability that if your fusion monster would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from the grave instead. So if you draw into this card and you've already summoned a copy of Aluber, you can just discard this card to the graveyard for your copy of Nightmare Apprentice to be able to get more protection in the graveyard for your fusion monsters, which is why I've chosen to play this card again in the deck, and it actually helps out a lot for the consistency to be able to get to the branded fusion plays, which if you go for Rid Braum will actually open up all of your plays for your Chimera cards, which is really nice. So that's it for the spell cards, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 3, and that's going to be 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is just a really good trap right now. It's basically just use this card to stop your opponent's monster effects. It's an absolutely crazy card when you set it to your side of the field to lock down entire columns of spells and traps. It's overall just a fantastic card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. This card is one of my favorite fusion cards. It's just a really awesome card to be able to summon because it just requires a beast monster plus a fiend monster to make this card. And this card's name becomes Chimera, the flying mythical beast, while on the field or in the graveyard. And this card also has the ability, if this card is fusion summon, you can activate this effect that you get to send a random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard during the end phase of this turn, which is an awesome ability just to be able to get rid of a card out of your opponent's hand. Also, during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can manage this card from the graveyard and target one of your Beast Fiend or Illusion monsters that's in your graveyard and special summon it back to your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of the Baphomet fusion. Baphomet, the mythical king of Phantom Beasts. This card is really cool in the deck as a 2-up, and I've actually chosen to play 2 copies of this card now, and it's really nice in the deck as a 2-up because it has the ability, it counts as a copy of Chimera, the flying mythical beast, while it's on the field or in the graveyard, and it just requires 2 monsters with different types between Beast, Fiend, or Illusion to make this card, so it's really easy to put on your side of the field. And if it's fusion summon, you get to send a Beast, Fiend, or an Illusion monster from your deck to the graveyard, and also during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can banish this card from the graveyard to target one of your banished Beast, Fiend, or Illusion monsters, accept a copy of this card, and special summon it to your side of the field, which is a great ability. We then play a single copy of Chimera, the Illusion Beast. This card is our main OTK piece for the deck because this card can attack a number of times equal to the number of materials that was used for this card's summon. It does not destroy the monster in a battle, but when it attacks a monster, it negates their effect and drops their attack points to 0, meaning if you use like 4 materials on this card, you swing in the first time and it drops them down to 0 and negates the effect. You swing in a second time, do 31, a third time, do 31, and a 4th time, and you OTK, which is so cool to be able to do this card. But this card is definitely a 1 of the build because it also counts as Chimera, the flying mythical beast, while on the field or in the graveyard. We then play a single copy of Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is just a good option to be able to make in the deck. I like this card as a boss monster, but I usually just summon out a copy of Dragoon instead of this card, but it is a good option that you can make. We then play a single copy of Lubellion. Lubellion helps us summon out a bunch of cool fusion monsters like Dragoon, and it's just a really awesome card to be able to summon out Brand of Fusion so we can step into other fusion monsters. We then play 2 copies of Albion. Albion is basically walking Miracle Fusion for the deck, and also with this card, you always want to play 2 when you play Mirror Jade because you play 1 to summon and 1 to send off a Mirror Jade's effect. We then play a single copy of Ridbrom. Ridbrom is one of the most powerful cards in the entire X deck because you can actually use Fallen Volbaz plus a copy of Gazelle, which then will search an illusion monster from your deck to your hand on the Gazelle's effect. And this card is also a walking negate for X deck monsters, which is really, really cool. And it has a really cool ability to return a monster from the field back to the hand, which is an absolutely insane ability. Also, during your opponent's turn, while it's in your graveyard, quick effect, you can actually target a Fallen Volbaz in your grave and either special summon this card or Fallen Volbaz and banish the other, giving you basically a walking super polymerization from the graveyard. We then play 2 copies of Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera is really good as a 2-of because it's very easy to summon this card off of Chimera Fusion during the opponent's turn. And either lets you draw 2 and pop a card or pop 2 and draw a card. And also if you have polymerization in the graveyard, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. And since we're playing the copies of Edgem Chain with the Fright for Patchwork and polymerization, it's very easy to be able to protect this card. We then play a single copy of Magnum. Magnum is just a great staple in this deck. I absolutely love this card. It lets you draw cards and it pops cards on the field, which is really nice. We then play a single copy of Dracostopelia. Dracostopelia is a walking negate and very easy to summon in the deck. And then finally play a single copy of Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. This card is one of my favorite cards ever created. It's a walking negate. It can't be target destroyed by card effects. Also, it can pop cards on the field if you put Vanillas into it, but you don't in this deck. You basically just use Versago, the Destroyer, plus Fallen Volbaz to make this card. Once you make your copy of Lubellion, you discard a card, put your copy of Versago and the Fallen Volbaz that you sent to the graveyard back into the deck, summon out Dragoon, you have a walking negate, which is really, really cool. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is absolutely crazy. And actually the deck I currently play competitively, and it's just really, really fun. This deck is absolutely crazy. You can summon out all sorts of boss monsters in the deck, and you just summon out all sorts of cool fusion monsters. And now that we finally have Nightmare Apprentice, this deck is super consistent. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come for our notifications. We'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.